Mhm.
Welcome to Impact Media Presents. As promised, we're back with author George Gibbs, the author of A Heart of a Dad. And today we're going to be at the heart of a conversation with dads. And George is going to have an opportunity to talk about his book with some men across the country who have read it. And it's going to be an impactful, insightful time with strong Black men, strong Black fathers and grandfathers. And we're so excited that you came to join us today. So, George, how are you?
Well, good afternoon, Kelly. I'm doing well. I'm
I
doing well.
love your t-shirt.
Oh, thank you. Actually, my mother had this made for me. And,
Oh, wow.
you know,
I love it. Well, I wore blue for the boys today. So,
you know,
so I tell you what, we're just going to jump right into it. There are some very special, men that I'm going to introduce you to. Most of them you do not know. We're going to start with Nate Causley. I want to introduce you to Nate Causley. And Nate, one moment. This was the surprise that we had for you, George.
good to see you, Alex.
Yeah, so just to have Alex in the studio with us. Um, Alex, George,
Good morning.
Right?
Good to
How you
see you,
what do you
doing?
want to
George.
say to George?
Congratulations on your book, my friend. It's always good to see you, even virtually. Just excited to be here this morning, and I really just appreciate your wisdom and your inspiration, telling your story and your testimonial around what it means to be a dad. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alex. It's really good to see you. I was when Kelly told me she had a surprise guest, I was thinking, okay, who could it be? And your mind starts going through different names, and and then I was reading one of the notes that she had sent me, and it said they were a girl dad. I'm like, okay, so who do I know is a girl dad? And and it was a toddler, and so it really kind of started narrowing things down. But I never thought it would be you. So it's good to have you here, and congratulations on the kids, and the just you and Ashley, and the time that you guys have spent together now, and marriage, and starting a new family. Those are some exciting times.
It is. It's absolutely exciting. It's reading your book and sort of taking some of the nuggets. It definitely provided not only, I think, sustenance for the journey of being a dad, but also sustenance for the journey of being a husband. And you, I think, are so articulate and so, quite frankly, vulnerable in talking about the mountain highs, the valley lows, the challenges that arrive, and the challenges that you have to deal with, but also the ability to move through this and navigate through it together as one in raising a family. And so I just appreciated sort of reading it. It sort of helped me harken back to not only my experience as a dad so far, but also the love I've received from my father. So I'm just grateful for your ability to help inspire so many of us around being dads.
Well, thank you. If I might, I do want to ask you one question. I'm going to ask the other gentleman the question too. But since you're probably the newest dad here, is there anything that you have experienced as being a father, a new father, that you were just totally unprepared for?
Hey, let me count the ways.
George.
You know, having a girl, who's a little bit past 2, and just, I think for me, it has been really being vulnerable with my kid and setting aside I think just shedding selfishness, I think is what I've experienced. I am a workaholic. I believe in providing for my family and making sure that I do the greatest job I can with career, but perhaps out of just seeing this kid's smile, her coming up to me day in and day out, a hug, I love you, daddy. It just causes you to shed the selfishness and to make certain that your child is front and center in everything you do. And so when I think about, going to the travel I take, when I think about, just saying no more and more to things, it's because of her. And it's because of the fact that I want to spend time, that I want to be there, that I don't want to miss a moment, that I also want to make sure that my wife is not shouldering the burden of being a provider, and so that we're splitting that time. And so, yeah, I think it's something that I have just learned along the way on how to be unselfish, and by being unselfish to just demonstrate and pour in to our daughter. So I appreciate the question. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I also learned how to change.
And you know what? It's been such a blessing to see you. You can actually see how you've evolved as a dad, Alex. Before children and after children. I mean, you just beam. And that's why I was like, I have to have you as a part of this, because it's so clear that you love being a dad. And I thought this would be a special surprise for George. So thank you for joining us. We're going to move on to the next guest. George, I'd like you to meet Nate Cosley Jr.
Hey, Nate, how are you?
George.
I'm good. How are you doing, George?
I'm doing well, sir. I'm doing well. It's good to have you here to be a part of this conversation, and looking forward to it.
It's an honor to be here. I think the greatest thing that a person is be a father. So I'm excited that I was given the opportunity.
Okay. Now, I think
thank you for coming.
We saw someone special in there with you.
Yeah, that was my son.
Yeah, we're going to bring him on a little later, just in a little bit. We're going to talk to Nate for just a second, George. So
that's me first, right?
Right. So Nate, tell them a little bit about your impressions of the book and what it meant to you to read it.
Well, I was really excited to not only be given the opportunity to be a part of this, but the book about fatherhood. And I think you titled it so appropriately, The Heart of a Dad. That just kind of resonated with me. But more importantly than just what you wrote about, your personal story really resonated with me because as we learned earlier, I'm the product of a blended family. Your story about growing up, your father being in the Air Force, my father was in the Air Force. My parents got divorced. My stepfather was in the Air Force. So just that whole experience of having a blended family, two fathers, both who were very supportive. And then in my own experience of getting married, getting divorced, and being a blended family, my son having a stepfather who was in his life, and we got along very good. And then in my last marriage that I was in that got divorced, I have a stepdaughter who's also my daughter. So I have 4 children from blended families. And so you just really, your whole book just hit me right square in between the eyes with the whole experience of what it was like growing up with this blended family.
Well, let's bring in this other special guest that George let the cat out of the bag on.
Sorry about that.
Trey, no problem. It's all good. It's all love here. Trey, meet George. Trey, Nate.
Hey, Trey. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, good to have you here.
What's happening, son?
What's going on, Pop? How you doing over there? Happy early Father's Day.
Thank you.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
Yes.
Nate, I don't know that I could handle that right there. I'd be all messed up, But it's good to see you, Trey. And we had an opportunity to talk a little bit earlier. And one of the things I was going to say to you, which I'll say to you and to Alex, is the value that you young men bring to the conversation is amazing.
Exactly.
Because you young men are, as Alex was talking, I was thinking, where were you 30 years ago when I started this thing? I needed the things that he was talking about 30 years ago. And Trey, to talk to you earlier and just hear the confidence in your voice and the way you, you grasp this idea of parenting and fatherhood is just amazing. And we need more Treys in the world. So I'm glad.
Absolutely.
Glad to have
so
you
let's hear from Trey so the rest of the world can hear some of that good stuff. Trey, you want to share some of your impressions with George about the book with our viewers?
First, I would like to say thank you for all that kind commentary you just gave me, just boosted my confidence before I even expected. So I thought the book was pretty much amazing. It touches me just like it touches my father. And just some of the takeaways that I had wholeheartedly was just the importance of strategy when it comes to raising another human being, being able to be intentful with your words, the importance of being an ear, but not shooting down a thought that comes out of your child's mind, but to really just help guide them. And then also the importance of still being a father, once they leave the nest, because me and my father, our relationship has always been intact where I loved him dearly and I look at him like a father figure. But now, more than ever, we both talk as men. And there's esteemed amount of guidance that I look to from him as I bounce off ideas and topics. And even, as I look into doing business ventures, being able to tap into that wisdom and have that guidance being expressed as a parent, as a friend, but also as a man has been very impactful in the way I've moved in today's society. And overall, I wrote down a note. One of the things that I took away that was real heavy was you said dreams take time to develop into reality, and sometimes we have to be still and wait for God's perfect timing. And that's something that I think, especially when it comes to fatherhood, I'm not a father yet, but understanding that there's certain aspects of yourself that you'll have to evolve with. As my dad, he had to continue to grow as Nate Causley Jr. So being able to balance that and that of a childhood's expectations and growth, I think that's going to be something I take with me as I move down and continue the Causley lineage. Hopefully we have a little quattro in the future. But I thought the book was awesome overall.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. On that note, we're going to move on and introduce our next guest, Frederick Dotson. So thank you, Trey and Nate. We really appreciate it. Appreciate you. Fred, unmute yourself, sir, so we can introduce you properly.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Fred Dotson, meet George Gibbs.
Brother George Gibbs,
Fred.
how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, sir, and you?
Doing well, doing well. I want to say this. I want to thank you, first of all, for the heart of your book. To be honest with you, when I read the title, it was a little bit tough. It was a little bit tough for me to open the book. And then I read the other caption of the subtitle, A Faith-Based Approach to Parenting. And I appreciate your heart and the heart that you put into this book and the words that you put down on paper, because some of these things have really hit me very hard. I'm on my second marriage, second family, and so forth, and I've been estranged from my first family, my children, and so forth. So, not having the understanding of what a dad is supposed to be and what a dad is supposed to do. I thank God for the second chance that He's given me with the sons that I have now with my present wife. And they're stepsons, but they're my sons, and I'm their father, and they treat me as such. And we have a wonderful relationship. And so I thank you for the wisdom that you shared in your book. And I espouse to try to share this wisdom with my sons as well, because without faith, you can't make it. You cannot make it. You won't make it as fathers without a faithful walk with Christ. And that's what I share with my sons now, and it's more evident because of the losses that I've suffered throughout my life. But thank you for your heart, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Fred. One of the things I would tell you is that we serve a God of second chances.
Amen. Amen.
So that's his MO.
Amen.
Second chances. And one of the things I say is that, and we think in terms of sometimes when a marriage doesn't work, let me just be candid. Sometimes when a marriage doesn't work, we think of it as a failure. Okay? Let me just say what I say in the book. Because we fail does not make us failures.
Right. I read that. Yes.
A failing doesn't make you a failure. Okay. So, God gives us all so many chances and opportunities to make things right, get second chances, and move ahead. And the beauty of it is that He still uses us.
Amen. Amen.
He still uses us, despite the flaws.
Amen.
That's the beauty of it. Is that we all get the opportunity to be used despite the flaws.
Amen.
I'm happy to have you. I'm happy that you're here.
And I'm experiencing that. I'm experiencing that in my own life, so I can testify to that, to the truth of that. Because life has not ended, and life still goes on. And I'm encouraged.
Yes.
And I'll say this one last thing. I have a men's group. We have a men's group, and I shared with them this statement, and they were all kind of baffled. I said, as miserable as I am, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life because I have Christ. So I'll leave it with that. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Fred. And now, Jack, you get a little time with George Gibbs. Jack, George, Jack.
Hey, Jack, how are you, man?
How you doing, Mr. Gibbs? Wow. I get to see the face and talk to the guy that wrote this book. This is very cool for me right now.
Good deal.
So, Jack, you want to share some impressions with George real quick, and then we're going to bring all of you guys together.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it's an excellent book, obviously. It's a great read as a father. And I'm going to focus in, George, on two of the chapters that really not just resonated with me in a special way, but have some direct application for where my ministry is. For the last 22 years, I've been involved. I'm a program director for a boys mentorship program called Rites of Passage. Mm-hmm. Rites of Passage. It's very comprehensive. It's an 8-month program. It starts in March, first weekend in March, and it's every Saturday morning from 7 to 11. Parents, a lot of single parents, and unfortunately, in some cases, they bring their boys age 12 to 15 to the church, and they drop them off and come pick them up at 11. So from 7 to 11, every Saturday morning, starting the first weekend in March, and then they graduate the last Saturday in October. The Rites of Passage program, when I look at your book, and I was reading it, there's 2 chapters that I'm going to have to do 2 things with you. One, this is going to be required reading for all of our mentors and our role model guys. That's one. But 2, we got to figure out a way to have you come in for a special session with our parents, so you can speak to some of these applications, especially out of your chapter 4 is uncharted waters. When we pick up these boys, we pick them at age 12. They're right in the heart of uncharted waters. And one of the lines I like in there is that never stop steering the boat. Right. Never stop steering your boat, as it were, while trying to navigate uncharted waters. These are uncharted waters for these 12 to 15-year-olds. Right. But as mentors and as parents, we were there. We were that age. So we got to make sure we stay in control. Obviously, God is in control, but God is guiding us to train our kids. So I dig that. But the other book, I really love this chapter, The Danger Zone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what, Jack? Hold that one, because you're going to get time to go deeper into that. You want to say one quick thing about the danger zone? George is going to tap into that with you in a little bit.
All right, let's get into it later. But excellent.
Okay, let's get the other men together.
Excellent read.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And
All right.
familiar with that the passage.
All right. So we're bringing all the brothers back in the studio. We got Nate and Trey. All right. And then if we can get Nate Jr. in, that'd be great. And I will go out. So I am going to leave the man cave, the basement, and let the brothers have it. Enjoy.
Thank you, Kelly. Brothers, listen. Oh, we've got another little brother in there. All right, Fred.
Grandson.
All right.
Little Kevin. He's not gonna be here long, but I just wanted to let you know he's my heart. He's been an inspiration in my life, and I love him dearly. Yeah.
So probably one of the things that we should do, brothers, is mute our phone, mute our cameras, our phones, because there is some static back there. Okay, good. And I'll try to throw it to you individually, and that way, we can eliminate that static. But first of all, I want to thank Kelly. I know she stepped away, but I want to thank her for making this opportunity available. One of the things that I wanted to do after writing this book is really to start this conversation and have this conversation with men and fathers just about parenting. And really, it's not for you, okay? It's really for that other guy out there who's trying to figure it out. So the people that I'm going to be talking to, hopefully over the next year or two, are people who can help other young men like Trey and others, figure out this parenting thing and how to do it. Okay, so I wrote this as a tool, to be a tool. I'm not trying to be on a bestseller list. None of that. That doesn't matter to me. I'm trying to give a tool to, young men so that they can be better fathers. I had a meeting when I was in California. I had a meeting with a young lady from City Scholars, and she asked me what my goal was with this, and I said I wanted to put it in the hands of 1 million people. And she said, "Do you want to put it in the hands of 1 million people, or do you want to impact 1 million people?" And that made me think, wow, maybe I really want to impact 1 million plus people versus necessarily putting it in hands. Because, I got 1,000 books here and they can just be books on a shelf if they're not, impacting. So, so that's one of the reasons I wrote it as a tool. Kelly asked me to talk about, really three key messages. And I think you find those messages really, I tried to put them in the intro because I wanted the intro to really get the reader to say, okay, I want to hear these arguments. And so I made these arguments in the intro. And one of them is that the maintenance of a good relationship between a father and their child is the father's responsibility. And oftentimes I think that, young adults in particular, some teenagers, but young adults in particular, they carry this burden that they didn't have the best relationship with their father, and they think it's their fault. My argument is it's not their fault. My argument is that's on us. If I don't have a good relationship with my kids, that's on me. And that's where I got to take the responsibility. So that's part of the argument. It's up to the dad to build that strong, vibrant relationship, with the child. So I'm gonna stop there. I got two more, but I'm gonna stop there and let anyone who wants to jump in on that and what you think about just that piece alone. Alex, what do you think? You're the newest dad.
Yeah, no. First of all, I appreciate the question. What it brings up for me is consistency and being present. As we were talking earlier, you know, my number one priority is family right now. And there was a time where, you know, I was all into work, working. But that yields because you recognize that you just got to be present, you got to be consistent. You're going to miss out. And having, you know, being around my daughter is a necessity. It's something that my father was around me and my sister constantly, ongoing, and I must do the same. And so I think being present, being consistent is extremely important when it comes to parenting. Still learning, obviously, as a parent, but it's one nugget that I think I've taken on this journey.
Very, very good. So Alex, to that point, one of the things that I had a long-term pastor here in Dallas, Dr. Eddie B. Lane, and one of the things that he taught me, and he used to tell me all the time, because I worked at UPS. For those of you who don't know, I worked at UPS for 38 years, and you know, UPS is not an easy job. There's no easy job at UPS. There's no easy day at UPS. If you ask one of my former executive colleagues, he will tell you, we hit the ball hard every day. Okay, that's what we did. But Pastor Lane used to tell me, he said, George, you can't give it all to UPS. You have to save some for Teresa and the kids. And when he started telling me that, you know, that resonated with me and said, wow, I really do. As much as I want to climb this ladder, and believe me, I wanted to climb that ladder as high as I could climb it and as fast as I could climb it. But his thing was, you got to save some for Teresa and the kids, or else you'll lose them, and they will, you know, not benefit from having had you in their life because you gave it all to UPS. So I applaud you for the fact that you recognize that, hey, it's, you know, this is not about me anymore. And that's one of the key pieces of advice I always give to young fathers is, it's no longer about you. It's no longer about you. So let me hit another point here, and then I'm gonna bring somebody else in. So the next argument I make is that it's the dad's responsibility to lead his children in their development, whether it's spiritual, emotional, intellectual, cultural, all of those things. That's the dad's responsibility. And when doing so, if he uses the wisdom of God, he's going to have pretty good success leading his kids. Nate, you got your son here, Trey. So tell me what you think.
I think everything you say is spot on. From my personal perspective and reading your book, the thing that is most important, or was most important, because you know our situation was a blended family, stepfather, father, different states. You know, there were times where when Trey's mother and stepfather, they moved to Michigan, whether it was to Korea, to North Carolina. The thing that always resonated with me and that I focused on was that no matter where they were, and I remember long trips just to go to Michigan and Lansing for one football game on a weekend, of not wanting to miss that, of traveling to Virginia on a weekend because he had a game, or to North Carolina. And the one thing that I remember internally, all I wanted to do is that when I said something to him, no matter how difficult it was, and you know, he knows some of those stories, some stories he's not even aware of how challenging it was to get to a point to make it in time for one game and then drive all the way back to New Jersey or come from out of the country. So from a father I wanted him to know that when I said I was going to do something, no matter what it was, he could depend on that. And what really comes to mind was when they were about to go to Korea, and this was right at the height of, you couldn't go to the terminal that, you know, to see them off. And he was at the international terminal, and I think Dulles or Ronald Reagan, and I was in Virginia, and I had to get up there, and all the things that I went through just to get there in time, only to get there and them say, hey, you can't come back here because of, you know, all of the new things, and we can't let you back there. So I had to call in a silver, what I call platinum chip, called Congressman Rob Andrews, a friend of mine from New Jersey, made a call, and they got me back there. And it looked like I wasn't going to be there because I'd gotten there, Trey was there. When he showed up right before they went to Korea, I was sitting there at the international terminal in the chair when he walked through the, through the ramp and saw me sitting there. So for me, it was always, it didn't matter how difficult it was. When I said I was going to do something, I made sure it happened.
So that's a great point, Nate. That's one of those things called accountability. And we talk about that. When you say, so I say that we have to create boundaries for our children, and we have to create these points of accountability and expectations. So they have expectations. Trey had an expectation that you were going to be there to see him off. So one of the things I say is that, listen, we have to do what we say we're going to do, and that is one, that's leadership, but two, that's accountability. When we do what we say we're going to do. And I also think that as fathers, and maybe you guys think differently, but as fathers, we have to hold our kids to those standards too. So when they say they're going to do something, then we have to hold them to do what they say, but at the same time, we have to be accountable to them in the sense that we do what we say,
Absolutely.
And I can appreciate your trips and chasing. My kids played sports, and so we were chasing the ball all over the place. And those of you in California, I will tell you, we would when our son was up at Westmont College, up in Santa Barbara, and we lived down in Mission Viejo, which is probably a good close to 100 miles.
Oh yeah.
And when he would play on Friday nights, oftentimes I worked that day. I didn't take off work because he was playing a game that night. I worked that day. I would have to go home, get Teresa, and then we go from Mission Viejo up to Santa Barbara.
Hey, George, you had to go through all of that LA traffic to get up there?
Through LA traffic. And sometimes we didn't get there till halftime, but we always got there. And that was the key. That's really part of the key. So this development piece. So Jack, you're working with kids through the Rites of Passage program, and I'm familiar with a similar Rites of Passage program through the 100 Black Men with Dr. Thomas Parham.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I would ask you about is this whole thing of development. How do you see development coming out of the book? How do you see, helping your kids develop their character, helping them develop their spirituality, helping them develop emotional intelligence?
No, that's good. That's a good question. And I'll tell you, I was starting on it a little earlier when I was talking, but this book, especially in the danger zone, connecting from age 12, preteens, they're just getting puberty and they're becoming that age of awareness and independence. We all know about that because we all were 12. I'm looking at everybody on the screen. I don't think anybody on the screen skipped their teens.
Right.
So all of you guys would be great mentors for our boys as long as you don't forget that you were once their age. But to answer your question and address that, George, with the development years, in Rites of Passage, what we do, there are some principles that we want them that are very important for their development. And this is a Bible-based, faith-based program. So we start off from day one, we want them to know and have some relationship with God on whatever level they have it. We want them to recognize that God is real, that they have a relationship with God. We want them to get saved to the point that they understand that God is three persons, God the Father, God the Son, and we rush to their relationship with the third person, God the Holy Spirit, because it's God the Holy Spirit that's going to be living inside of these guys. It's God the Holy Spirit that's going to be, when we talk about development, the first thing we say to them after they understand that God is living in them is that you have two choices all the time in your life in development. Right now, where you are, 12, 15, you have two choices. The first choice you have in everything you do, whether it's with girls, whether it's with drugs, whether it's with sex, whether it's with banging, whatever it is, the choices that you make with your academics, whether you study or don't study, whether you skip and ditch school or stay in class, you have two choices in everything that you're doing in your life from the moment they start this program. And the two choices are really simple. One, the first choice is your moral choice, a choice that you know, because you have the relationship with God now, you know is what God wants you to do, God's will. What you, there's a voice in you that's telling you, I shouldn't be skipping class right now. There's a voice that's in you saying, you know, I really don't need to be doing drugs right now. I really don't need to get somebody pregnant. I can't take care of if she have a baby. That's one choice that you're listening to in your head. The other choice is any other choice contrary to that. Okay? If your homies are telling you, let's skip class, if your girlfriend is saying, let's go behind the bungalow because I love you, any other choice other than what you know God in you is telling you to do is the other choice. So in terms of developing, I'm not saying anything to these boys that I didn't say to my kids. I have 3 kids. It's the same thing, and that is first choice. Know that there's God in you. Know that you are accountable to God. And at the end of the day, you have no excuse for making right choices.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Jack. So, Jack, if you and Nate could mute yours, I want to bring Fred in, and Fred, I want to bring you in on this third piece for why I wrote this,
Okay.
and the argument that we make is that to become the dad or the father that we want our kids to admire, to become that kind of dad. Not just anybody, you know, any man who has the ability can become a biological father.
Right.
But to become a dad that your kids appreciate, recognize, and expect. My argument is that we have to, back to Jack's point, we have to cultivate our relationship with the Lord first.
Amen.
But he teaches us how to do that. So were you able to pick up on that throughout your reading of the book?
Yes. You know, that all through all the comments that the preceding gentleman was saying, that was the underlying thing that I was thinking about throughout all this. The first and foremost, most important thing that we as fathers have to do is we have to cultivate a relationship with our Father. And once we cultivate a relationship with our Father, which is God, once we cultivate a relationship with God, our Father, that's what will be lasting. That's what will make a most important and lasting impression on our children. You know, my father was a church man, but you know, I didn't see him a lot because he was always in church. He was always gone to church or doing something in church. So I really didn't have an understanding of a relationship with God as such. You know, I had a good relationship with my father as a man, but not a good relationship with my Creator. And the things that my father did in my life that made an impression upon me, some of those things are still with me. But at the same time, you know, I was a victim of the same situation with my children. I was a fireman, and I was gone a lot. I was gone a lot by necessity of work and so forth, and just by necessity of the schedule, I missed a third of my children's life. You know, but all that being said, you know, that I have found with my second family, with my family that I have now, that's what's the most important thing is they see me, they're looking at me all the time. These 2 young men are looking at me all the time, and they're seeing what my relationship is. They're judging me based on my relationship with God. And so it's so important to have that personal relationship, because what you have in Christ is the only thing that's of value that you can give to your children. That's going to be the most lasting thing that you can give your children. It's what you have and your relationship with Christ. So that's where I come from on that.
That's right. Very, very good. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I got one last thing that I want to, and I'm going to throw this out to Trey. Um, Trey's not a father yet, but his father's here. Okay, his father's here. Um, one of the things I do, Trey, is I try to challenge fathers to become better at becoming dads. Okay, I want fathers to become better at becoming dads. Again, anybody who has the equipment can, procreate, but becoming a dad is different. And I want fathers, because see, I come from a world where it's all blended. I've got folks in my space that you know kids everywhere, you know um, multiple baby mamas. I mean, it's part of my community that I come from. um, and I say to them, I want you to do better. I need you to do, we need you to do better. Now now, brother, I know when I say that, that's, putting me out there. So Trey, what do you think about the challenge to fathers to do better or to be better dads? How can they do that? And did you see any of that in the book?
Yeah, definitely. Think that's the $1 million question of what is the correct way of navigating the how, which unfortunately there's no one ideal way, because sometimes even with your intent, you never know what the receiver is accepting and internalizing, and also in that attempt to get something across, you don't know in the moment in time how you may be projecting that, the right way or the wrong way in terms of the listener. So I think at the ultimate stake, it's just about intent, and you must, at the end of the day, tap in with God, and some of the stories that you have in the book about just trying to do things out of the goodness of your heart and doing them the right way. Because I think all of us, would say, we don't live in a world where ourselves are internally perfected to the way we would want to be, mentally, financially, psychologically. There's so many things we're working on in ourselves. So as a child, you will see those things from your father as well. But what you will never steer away from is just the goodness and the intent of their heart, which you touched on a lot of those things within the book. And I'll put out a quote that you put in within the book that stood out to me in terms of how I connected with that to my own father. And that's, we have to be careful not to let what we perceive as achievable stifle our kids' dreams. Um, I am a man just like yourselves, at 30, where my navigation of what my plan is can change, and where I want to go, and what road I want to travel down. Um, the one thing I can say is no matter which way I tried to navigate down the road or steer the ship, my father was always there, shotgun with me, being not just a coach, but as a cheerleader as well. So I think just the biggest thing in terms of a takeaway that fathers can do is, one, you have to be present to do that. You have to be available mentally, spiritually, and the dialogue has to navigate between being a friend as well as a father. But ultimately, the intent of just being a champion of your child's mind and allowing that to have some comfort to bloom for whichever way the wind blows without being judgeful. I think that'd be a key focus that your child will always take away, and no matter how bright the light or how dark the shadow, they will be comfortable expressing themselves to you as a father in times of need.
Wow. Straight, your audio was fading in and out, but let me just tell you, I heard every word you said, and that was powerful. That was powerful. You know, when you talk about consistency, ability, availability, I worked for a guy and he used to talk about skill sets. And he said one of the best skill sets that we can have is availability. Availability. And so, I think in terms of as a parent being available, to my children. I would like to ask a couple questions. And this is for anybody, but how did becoming a father change the way you approach life? And what would you do different? Nate, maybe you could jump on that.
Can you hear me, George?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think what would I do different? I don't know if I would do anything different based upon the way Trey was, his experiences. The thing I probably missed out more was because of our blended family and when fathers and mothers go through divorce, Trey didn't get to come live with me full time until he got to high school. So I think the biggest part of that is now with my youngest, who's still here, my youngest, all the other ones, my other two daughters, Ashley and Sarah, they're in college, but Alicia's the one that's here. She's left. I'd probably say the toughest thing, and as a father, if you come from a blended family, just like you wrote in your book, George, that's something I don't know if you ever get over when you can't be with your child all the time. You adjust to the holidays, the summer times, but I'd probably say that was the biggest challenge. So when he actually was there with me full time all through high school, we were not just father and son, but like roommates. We developed even a deeper relationship as friends, and it was a little different. But as a young child, I'd probably say that was the hardest thing of just not, you can't replace each and every day. You do your best with what you have. You look back, but as you go forward, that's probably the one challenge that I had the most, was missing out every single day. And that's something that you can't replace. And you try to, teach your kids that, whatever it is. I always try to teach Trey, and I see that now. I'm so proud of him just to be on this call, but you have to do whatever you have to do when you've got to do it, whether you feel like it or not. So, when the sailor gets up to go sail, to go fish, sometimes the wind is blowing with you, and that's a great day. There's some times where things were great, but sometimes you get out there and the wind is blowing with you, against you. You still got to sail, still got to get out there, fight it. And I think if anything that I hope my son learned is that I never quit. No matter what, you saw me sail when the wind was against me, when the wind wasn't at all, and you just kind of sat there. And if you can apply all of those lessons to life, that get up every day, you got to go do something. And at the end of the day, enjoy the moments in each challenge. When things are good, enjoy it. But when things are bad, there's always a silver lining that you can learn. And I think that's what I impart on. He has an amazing outlook on life from a business perspective. His focus is being a businessman is different from when I was there. I was always not arguing, but challenged with our parents. Go to school, get a good job, and that was it. And I was sort of like, I want to start my business. It took me 11 years before my business started taking off. 11 years, and we went on our first vacation. For him, business is like breathing. It's natural. He doesn't even think about it. So his success was magnified because we didn't set any limits. You want to do this? And he lives his life like, okay, I can do it. And he doesn't think about it. So hopefully that helps a father out there who's mentoring their kids, whether it's father or son.
Absolutely. So Jack, I'm going to bring you in here. There's something I want you to throw at Alex. Okay. What advice, Jack? So Alex is a new father. His daughter is like 2 years old, basically. She's about 2, right? So he's a new father.
She's a little over 2.
And he's a new husband. Okay. He's only been married less than 3 years. Beautiful wife,
Yes.
Ashley. And so what advice would you give to Alex as a new father on being a parent, being a dad? What advice would you give to Alex?
Well, first of all, that was a long time ago for me, Alex. I'm a granddad with a 8-year-old and a 12-year-old and a 4-year-old right now. They're all girls though, Alex, so I can kind of relate to kind of something that's going on with you right now. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say if there's some advice that I could say that I know guaranteed you and your family and your children, your child will benefit from is this. It's not too early to do this. It says in his book, it talks about being a listener, being there, being a listener. And I have a phenomenal relationship with my 3 children. We could talk about anything, but it didn't just happen on accident. From the moment they were born, from the moment they could talk, Alex, I really listened to the Lord on this, and I really do believe that if we are to train our children up in the way they should go, God listens to us, and we speak to God, and that is as close as that relationship is. I can say that, Alex, you're going to have a phenomenal relationship with your daughter and your kids, proportionate to how much you listen to them. So usually parents want to train and they want to instill and they want to give all of their knowledge and all their wisdom. And the important part of that gets missing in some of the challenged relationships is that they don't listen and let the kids express themselves and give their opinions and give their thoughts. And if there's one thing that I would say when I get compliments about my relationship with my kids is that, man, I was listening to them from the time they could say dad, and so I would say that's number one. We can go in a lot of other directions, but I think George puts in the book, and it's repetitive throughout his book. In every phase, George, you somehow you get back to making sure that we listen to our kids, because it will really help you, bro. It will make your job so much easier to channel them in the right way. If you have a two-way communication, you'll hear when they're going off chart. You'll hear when you're going in the wrong direction, and then the counsel will be specific to them. It will be tailor-made to what they really need to hear. But if we don't hear what's happening in their head and what they're dealing with in their phases through their life, then we can be one thing and not really hit on what they really need to hear from you.
I want to respond real quick to that, and just appreciate what you said. I was taking a note earlier from the book, and George, you wrote that really raising kids by faith means giving them space to grow, to engage, and to experience new challenges. And it struck me when I was reflecting yesterday. Was with my little girl, just listening to her. Not quite sure what she was saying fully,
Right.
but we were sitting on the steps headed downstairs, and she was just talking. And I find so much joy in that, and just building that relationship at an early age. And it reminds me also of my dad. I mean, we would just, from when I was young, and I appreciated just all the stories of the men on this call. When I was young, my dad sometimes would just sit. We just sit in the car and just talk. And that transitioned to us becoming, and Nate made reference to becoming friends later on in life, and would just talk, and sometimes just sit and listen to each other just by not saying anything. We know what the other was thinking and just be reflecting. And so it's I really appreciate that comment because I think it really encompasses how I was raised and how I want to raise my kid as well. So thank you for that.
So thank you, Alex.
Let me just say one thing to that. Let me speak to that. I think one of the most important things, and I'm speaking to the young man, and this is from experience, I think one of the most important things that you have to always keep in mind is you want to model before your children the type of husband and father that you want your children to be. And that means to your wife. The most important thing you can do for your children's life is to love their mother and give her the utmost respect, because your daughters are going to look for a man just like their father. And the sons are going to want to emulate their fathers. So you want to model, and it takes the Holy Spirit and the work of Christ to do this. You want to be a model of how a marriage should be, and that means to your wife. That's the most important thing you can do for in front of your children, is be the best husband you can be to their mother.
So Fred, you just really answered, two questions that we had here, as it relates to daughters. I think daughters they just do something to fathers that they really get to the heart, and they look at us to see what kind of man they're going to marry or be with. And so how you are with your wife and how you are with your daughters is so critical, because they're looking to see what that next generation is going to look like through you. They see their first love through you. They experience their first love with a man through you.
I might
Alex,
I might add to this as well. Well, I lost my thought. That's old age. Lost my thought just that quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me go to Alex here, because I got a question that I think Alex can answer, and most of you could. I think most of you could answer. Trey can't answer yet, but the rest of you could answer this. And then I'm gonna switch over and talk about just grandparents for a minute. Those of you who are grandfathers. But Alex, to a young man out there who is struggling with whether or not he wants to be involved in his child's life, what do you say to that young man?
I'd first tell him, number one, I had an amazing relationship with my dad. My dad transitioned just shy of 84, prostate cancer, about 5 years ago. One of the greatest joys I had was to help take care of him as he had taken care of me. And so that was just a blessing to move back to Los Angeles and to be able to just take care of him. And the love of my dad was immense. What would I say to a young? There's nothing as a young father with a kid and one on the way. There is nothing that fills you up more than the joy of having a child and bringing a life into the world, and being able to help to mold and to grow and to just experience unsurmountable joy from that life. To train them up, my dad was a praying man, to train them up in the ways of God, to sow into them. There's nothing more that gives you joy. And so I would encourage a young man who's having that struggle to not only seek counsel, to pray about it, but to look at some of the dads, the dads on this call, the dads out there in the world who have experienced that same joy and that same growth. It's challenging. Nothing easy about being a parent. Nothing easy about being a dad. But when I look back at the last couple of years, I have not experienced this type of love, this type of peace. And that's relative, because crying at night this is a different story, but this type of love and this type of joy from just a blessing from God. And so I think that's how I would respond. And I think it's, it takes time for someone to sort of grapple with how they navigate it. There's all sorts of issues and challenges and hurdles and mountains and valleys that are in people's lives that inform how they interact. But that's be my story. That's my testimony. That's what I would share with a young man just seeking to navigate that battle. It's joy. It's insurmountable joy. It is one of the best blessings I've ever experienced.
So thank you, Alex. I really appreciate that. And I think there's a lot of young men out there who need to hear that. They need to hear that. I was thinking this morning, I'm breaking my sentence, but I was thinking this morning that joy, last night we had a storm here in Texas, and the storm passed over. It was a bad storm. We always have these bad storms in Texas. The storm passed over, and in the morning, joy came. Many times you go through these storms and you lose your lights, you lose your electricity, but then it comes back on in the morning. And that's what I would say is, joy is in the morning. And so to that young man out there who's like, I'm not sure I want to be a part of this life, this child's life. Maybe him and the mother don't get along anymore. Whatever it is, the joy is when that child is born and they become a part of your life, and you become a part of their life. That's the joy of it. So I got to switch because we're right at the hour mark. But I want to just take a couple minutes because we got a couple grandfathers on here, right? Your grandfather on here, raise your hand. I saw a finger over there, Fred and Jack. So I want to hear from the grandfathers because I take it that being a grandfather is and I'm not. It's almost like you get a second chance. To do it again. Maybe we could hear from each of you in a couple minutes. Just tell us a little bit about being a grandfather and how that impacts your grandchildren. Jack, Kelly, you're muted.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to chime in on this grandfather conversation. These two grandfathers that we have, Fred Dotson and Jack Lightsey, I've had the blessing to see them with their grandchildren. They are amazing as dads, but oh my gosh, they light up and their world just changes when the grandbabies are around. And Jack's granddaughter, I had the privilege of being one of the few that she would even come to at church and hang out with.
River, she just runs to you, Kelly. I don't know why. I think it's your hair or something. I don't know what it is.
But I just love her. And Fred, just seeing him with his grandson, who he brought on earlier, I was so happy to see him do that. Was such a blessing. So all of you have had such an incredible conversation. I was going to say, you can continue. I don't let the time rush, George. So if you guys want to continue the conversation and have time to, I would say this is a rich conversation. You can keep going. Okay.
Kelly, I could take 30 seconds because I could also take 30 days to talk about my granddaughter. But I could tell you, George, and Kelly sees me in action, but it's a blessing to have, like you said, George, a second chance. But it's also fresh too, because my granddaughter cherishes me, and grandparents are cherished. But we also understand in that second chance that we're still ministering and representing their mother, our kids. So there's still that accountability, George. It's not all fun and games. We still have some discipline and some nurturing to do for even a generation away. So yeah, I would say that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack. Fred?
And I would say that, in this situation that I find myself in, I don't have a relationship with any of my natural grandchildren. But the grandson that you saw me with is from a blended family. He's just another. His son is my stepson, but we're like father and son. And so that poses a bit of a challenge in terms of values that his father and mother were raised with, and the values that I have as a man, and that I've developed over time. So it's a bit of a challenge, but nevertheless, I believe God is faithful, and what I have an opportunity to share my Christ life with my grandson, and I look forward to that, and it's a pleasure. He loves me, and the one thing I love about children, and this is where you have to tell young fathers everything. You know, when children come into the world, they love us unconditionally. Unconditionally. They have no preconception of what it's all about. It's all they do. They have love for us, and we want to do everything we can to continue to build upon that love and not destroy it, not tear it down. So I just think that, you know, just living the example and understanding now where the importance of God, the importance of having Christ in our life, and the importance of imparting that Christian perspective into our grandchildren. That's the most important thing we can do, because that once we leave, they're still going to be here, and they're going to need that foundation.
Absolutely. And we have another special guest, Miss Alicia, Nate's youngest daughter. Everyone say hi to Alicia. Hi.
Hello.
So, George, I also asked you to share with the gentleman and break it down a little bit. Messages to, fathers of girls, as well as, fathers who have sons. So if you could share now a message that the girls and the women can take away from the lessons of this book, and how this book prepares them, and then also for the sons who do not have children just yet.
Well, one of the things that I would say is, first of all, and I said this a little bit earlier, girls are special when it comes to their father. My girls, I have two girls and one son. My girls growing up, they always referred to me as my daddy. Just it was not dad or daddy. It was my daddy. So it was very personal to them, and they keep you up at night. Okay, let me just Ashley, let me just say, girls keep dads up at night. Um, because we have within us this protective mechanism. We want to protect. We want to provide, but we also want to protect. And there's an innate need for us to protect. And so as dads, we want to protect our girls. We want to almost shelter them. I've often said I could make a case for girls staying at home until they get married. Now, I don't know how long that would be, but in this world today, I'm not sure that would work. But we husbands, fathers, we provide a covering for our girls. Yes, we provide a covering for our sons too. And I'll say this, and I probably get in trouble for saying it, because my daughters, they tell me, we raised our son Nathan different. They tell me, y'all raised Nathan different. He got advantages that we didn't get. And I'll say, yeah, we did. We didn't play favoritism on one or the other, but we did raise them different, because they are different. I was raising a son to become a man. Okay. We were raising daughters to become women, and mothers. And so there's a different style of nurturing that takes place. There's a different firmness that takes place. I would be firmer with my son than with my daughters, because see, and daughters may not understand this, but there comes a point, and Nate, Jack can attest to this, Fred can attest to this, Alex can't attest to this yet, and Trey can't attest to this yet, but there comes a point with a young man, oftentimes, where he looks at his father and he says, I'm a man too. You know, we are equals, and there's this tension between, you know, father and son occasionally. That doesn't happen with daughters. You know, that doesn't happen with daughters. So, you know, I would say to men, love your daughters, you know, embrace your daughters, make sure that they know that you love and care for them like nobody else. And you are their biggest cheerleader. You are their biggest fan, no matter what. And oh, by the way, you are their biggest protector. You know, you're the guy that's going to go through the wall to protect them. You know. So anyway, those are my thoughts on fathers and daughters. They're just special human beings. When God made daughters, He made something really, really special. You know.
Hey, George.
You hope that you can have a bunch of them because they are really, really special. I have a former colleague. He's got 3 daughters. I'll tell you this. I think it's in the book. We were at a museum with all these exotic vehicles. I mean, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, you name it, it was in there. It was probably 40 or 50 of them in there. And he asked the owner, because the owner was there, he asked the owner, he said, which one's your favorite? And the owner says, well, do you have kids? And he said, yeah, I got 3 girls. And he said, which one's your favorite? And the guy got it. You know, you can't have a favorite. You know, they are, I say to mine all the time, they are all my favorites. Okay. All right. So my daughter tells me, see, daughters are special. She tells me somebody's asking a question.
Yeah, my youngest wants to make a statement. Go ahead.
My father, my brother, and my grandpa are my heroes.
They're your heroes.
So cute.
Congratulations. So
Very nice.
Very good. Anybody else, any thoughts on fathers, daughters?
Yeah,
I'll say this.
I've got 2 more that aren't present, so I can say they are different from sons. I had no problems with Trey, no tension. It was just like he took the baton and was like, I got this, Dad, and, you know, proud, everything that you can want from going to school, finishing on time, getting his MBA, pledging the same fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and all the things we share in common. I'm just like, do you think? But with these daughters, when they turn 13, 14, and 15, they become a little alien. I don't recognize them. Now, this one is 10. She's got a couple more years. Right now, I'm the hero, whatever daddy is, holding hands in the mall. But when they turn 14, 15, and 16, something happens. And then they come back around, like my 2 oldest are 20 and 19. So you go from daddy's word is just like God to, you know, I need some money or I need to do something. And, you know, you just hope that at some point they come back around, and they do. But daughters, man, you've got your work cut out for you with the daughters, you know, up until about 11, 12, enjoy it. Them teenage years, bruh, whoo, yeah. They can be challenging.
Let me say this about girls. You know, having had 2 girls in my life, 2 daughters, I felt that one of the most important things that I could do for my daughters was to teach them about men. Teach them how men think. Teach them how men think, because that's going to be the challenge for all girls. It's going to have to be dealing with another man, not necessarily the father, but another man. So I would try to teach my girls how men see things and how men think. That was one of the most important things that I thought about, the difference between my girls and my boys. Boys, I have a natural affinity to, because I'm a man like them. I know what they're going through, and it was easy for me. And I encouraged my wife to teach her sons about women. to see, give their sons a perspective of what a woman needs and what a good man should be to a woman. So I think that, and I think that's in a lot of ways that's missing from our worldview, our society. I think we try to shy away from teaching the girls, and the girls hang with their mothers. But I think it's important that the men teach their daughters about men. And I'll say this as the last note, and I make this observation: boys will leave when they leave home. They may come back, but they may not. But girls will always come back home, take care of the parents when they get old. Girls will always be back. I'll leave it at that.
That's a good point. They do have a tendency to return, which is, you know what, I'm okay. As far as I'm concerned, they can stay till they get married. Any other thoughts? All right. So as we and we are going to wind down.
Let me just clarify what I mean when I say girls will come back. When you need them, when you get old and can't deal for yourself, girls will come back and take care of you. That's what I mean by that. Not that they'll be coming, not that they'll be a burden.
That's for sure.
Girls will come back home. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's for sure. I did that for my dad. Thank you for that perfect segue. And I'm just so blessed by bringing this group together. You all did exactly what I thought you would do, which is really show the heart of a dad that the world needs to see. And it has been absolutely, beautiful, uplifting, impactful. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm actually dedicating this show today to my dad, my uncles, my Uncle Robert and Uncle Bruce in particular, and just all the amazing men in my life. And all of you have impacted my life in various ways, in the different stages of my life. And it's just such a blessing to see you all, as fathers. And I wish you all a happy Father's Day. And just to have it was really important for me to have kind of the generational representation here, and dads of different generations. And I'm so glad organically that we were able to even include more of the kids in it too. That always makes it really special. So I'm glad that Alicia, and Trey and Fred's grandson was able to come on and hang out with us. So I'm going to let you guys close out with some, your final thoughts. And then we'll wrap it up, George, okay?
So Kelly, for me, at least, you broke up on the end. But as I would close out this session, guys, we're in some difficult days, as we all know. Dr. King, in his last sermon, he started it off by saying, we got some difficult days ahead. And I think that's where we are today. We got some difficult days ahead. And that being said, I think it's appropriate for us as fathers, grandfathers, powerful sons like Trey, to take some time and sit down and have some conversations with our sons, our daughters, our nieces, our nephews. You don't have kids yet. Have a conversation with your cousin. But a straightforward conversation. Those who are fathers and grandfathers, I would say, let's pass down the history. Let's pass it down. The rites of passage program, part of that is about going forward, but also looking back at where you've come and passing down the history. Many of you know Dr. Bernard Kinsey, and he always talks about the myth of absence. And the idea being that we are absent from the narrative. And I think that we have to take time now to make sure that our kids know that we are part of this American history. And this American history is our history. And so take that time, have those conversations. One of the things that I've seen over the years is that people who are accomplished, like the gentleman, each one of you on this call, have an appreciation for your heritage. You have an appreciation for, what has made you the person that you are. And in doing so, that helps you to be confident to go into anything that you want to do. I mean, I hate to highlight here, but I'm looking at Alex. He's right in the middle right now, and when I was in California for those 11 years, I mean, I watched this man grow and develop into, the man that he is today, and just move, as he was talking about, moving from one level to the next level with his career. And I mean, he was always moving forward. I look at Trey, and I just see a powerful young man who has the world in front of him, to make all that he can make out of it, and be the person that other people are looking to and say, wow, I want to be like that guy. How did he do it? You know? And I think that, we're at a time where the fathers have to step in. We have to step in and step to the plate. People are talking about it's our time. Well, it really is our time. It's time for us fathers, dads to step to the plate. And I always say, when you get to the plate, you got to swing. So, we're up to bat. They're calling on us for leadership. They're calling on us to give guidance to, look at the streets. In the streets today, there are thousands of people all over this country still protesting. Who's going to provide the guidance to that young man who's out there protesting for his freedoms? It's the fathers. Who's going to say to that young man, do it this way, or this way is good. This way will get you better results. It's the fathers. Who's going to be the ones that say, let's do this thing a better way. Let's find a better way. Not necessarily that one way is right, one way is wrong, but let's find a better way. Let me share with you the wisdom that I've learned over 30 years, 40 years, whatever the number is. But that's the fathers. So, my encouragement is, for those of us on this call and those of us who are listening, yes, it is our time, but specifically it's time for dads or fathers to become dads and really take the mantle and never give it up. Never release that mantle of, which is your right as a father, to lead and really be a dad. And I was so taken when they started the hashtag, girl dad, with the loss of Kobe Bryant, obviously, and others. But girl dad, that's powerful. And so we have power. We just have to exercise it. And I just want to take a minute and thank each one of you personally for taking this time to be on this live stream with us and to share your input. There was a gentleman that I wanted to have on the call, and he's got some things going on right now, but I want to give him a shout out. And I asked Kelly if she wouldn't mind, but I wanted to give him a shout out. And this brother, his name is Don Pinkert. Don has done a documentary called The Great Yates. The Great Yates documentary. And it is a documentary on the Yates High School down in East Texas. And it's going to be premiering in about a week. So he's going to premiere it. He's shown it at the National Black Film Festival in Houston. It's entered into the 50th annual USA Film Festival here in Dallas. And on next Sunday, he's going to be having a screening here in the Dallas area. And so I just want to give Don and his wife Jocelyn a shout out for producing a documentary about a school, historically Black school, and then in the midst of this, we get the killing of George Floyd, who was from Yates. And so I want to shout Don out. And he's a great father. And he's a great grandfather as well. So I just want to say thank you to you guys again for being with us. Thank Kelly for, making this opportunity available. And I'm going to shut up and give you guys an opportunity to say a closing word.
You know what? We're going to start with Trey. Okay. I wanted to pop back on.
Alex, your name starts with A, so you always get to go.
First of all, can everybody hear me? Okay, cool.
So Alex, why don't you give a closing thought?
Oh, okay.
No, Trey, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So first off, I want to thank George for having me on, for the opportunity to kind of shed the light that I'm seeing out here. But I do want to touch on kind of the importance of something that you just stated about, what is going on outside our four walls right now. I do have a Juneteenth shirt on, so happy Juneteenth to everyone. But one thing that I want to say to you all and anybody that's watching is kind of retouch, this weekend with that experience and pain of the ancestors that we have had to endure from birth to death for some. When it comes to just slavery and just the fight that the Negro has had within America. And now fast forward to today of what is probably the most, monumental state in Blackness being spoken up for worldwide, not just in America. You're seeing Japan, in the UK, different parts of America. This is the most, I think, in the history of the Negro that people have stood up for us. So in terms of just being a father, I would encourage everyone to not let that stop within the four walls of their own family, and to really just expound their voice and expound their wisdom to touch others. Because being a millennial, I'm at 30. I'm at the stage in life where my comfort of, my decisions has placed me in an opportunity where I can fortunately gain some privilege from my actions and gain some comfortability. But coming into 30, I've kind of relinquished my ego to kind of figure out how I can be more impactful and purposeful for us as a community. So I'm doing more that I can do and really focusing my attention on how do I encourage and motivate others to do so. So what I would say is, as you talk about these children that are all, on the protests, they're super young. And, I'm out there talking to some of them. You're talking about 13 to 12-year-old men. And some of those may be your nephews. Some of those may be your cousin's sons or daughters. And, they're facing that pain. But, more than ever before, we're experiencing a generation that feels the need to express themselves, and they don't care how that message is perceived, which could be, very powerful, or it could be hurtful in terms of their own trajectory as a human on this earth if it's not bottled in the right direction. So one thing I would say is more than ever, you have to look yourself in the mirror and talk about 2020 as a historical stance, and what is your contribution going to be to fixing the problem? Because more than ever before, the spotlight is on us to do something. And, you're at the stage where maybe you have raised your child and he's out there, in life, and maybe he's not too involved with what's going on directly, and there's a certain sense of comfort. But now more than ever, you have to just be a father for your race, whether that's speaking up in a corporate setting, whether that is, projecting financial literacy. There's so many different sectors of problems that we could fix it. But as we tell our white brothers and sisters is something that we need to do together. And I think if I had to expound on one subject matter, is if we're telling them that they can't be silent anymore to fix the problem, we ourselves have to speak louder, because it's our duty to do so. So as a young brother to my older brothers, to my older sisters, I would just ask, within this time, and you think about your grandchildren when they can have that moment to speak upon what's going on in history, and they ask you about what your specific contributions were today. You do not have to talk about what other people did, but you talk about what you yourself did. So spreading nothing but love. And I want to say thank you to George and Kelly for inviting me. But now's the time. Kelly, I think we got you on mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just saying, Trey, what a blessing you've been today. I said, I can't even imagine having this conversation without you here today, and had no idea. I knew because of your dad and what your dad told me about you and what he told me about over the years, but what a blessing, and the messages that you brought today, just such wisdom, and a word that's needed for all people for such a time as this. You are definitely an inspiration, not only for your generation, but for all. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
All right. So we're going to say goodbye for now. And then, we're going to have you back. We're going to figure out how we can continue some of this dialogue with your generation on some other subjects. Okay.
We'll be glad to be back in any way. So you guys have a wonderful day. Gentlemen, stay blessed. Love you guys.
Yes. Thank you, Trey. All right. Who else is saying closing remarks?
I'd like to follow my son, so get the Causleys out of the way. Thanks to George, thanks to Kelly, an honor and a privilege. I can't say anything else. I'd be remiss not to give credit to my father. He's 84 years old, Nathaniel Causley Sr. down in Atlanta. Also to Trey's stepfather, Jerry Carter, out in Virginia. Such a wonderful guy. Just, it is a group effort. So for us blended family members, it takes a village to raise a child, and everyone is important, from father, grandfather, uncle to stepfather. I don't think Trey would be the person he is today without that blended influence. And so I just want to give Jerry a big shout out for his influence on my son's life. And then also, as we talk about daughters, how important that is. And my three, Sarah, who's 20, Ashley, who's out in New Jersey in college, who's 19, and then Alicia, who is 10. Fathers have to go get their sons, but you can't forget about your daughters. And it takes both. And I love what you said earlier about how we raise our sons, how we raise our daughters. The mother shows the son how he is supposed to treat his wife, his girlfriend. The father shows his daughters how they should be treated. So if that means, giving that guidance, or for no reason at all to sit around and, put on a record and dance with your daughters, because one day you're going to be passing them on to their future boyfriends and their future sons. So I think the conversation is so relevant right now. In addition to what we're going through as a people, I worry every day when my son goes out. When I talk to my father, he says, man, I never thought 30 years later, when you're in business doing the things, that you'd be going through the same things I went through as an executive at Campbell Soup back in the 1960s. And then when my son talks to me, what he's going through at Miller Coors, it's the same thing I went through in corporate America. So we have to pass down those lessons. We have to be able to be there for our sons and our daughters. And I think this is a step in the right way. Kelly, I think you need to do this. Bring fathers and daughters, bring mothers and daughters, or mothers and sons, because the message is so relevant today, and it's going to be relevant, in the future. And I'll just leave everyone with one of the things my dad shared with me from the great philosopher Sun Tzu and Confucius. Today, tomorrow is a mystery. Yesterday was history, but today is a gift. And so our daughters, our sons are gifts for a short amount of time that God gives us to help them populate and impact the world. So thanks again to everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you. Such a blessing. Again, you and two of the Causely crew joining us. Your offspring, we're so glad. It was such a blessing to have them here. Such powerful words. Alicia, thank you for coming.
No problem.
And I love that your father and your brother are your hero. That was just perfect contribution to this conversation today, because that's how us girls typically look at our dads, especially when we're fortunate to have dads like those of you who are here with us today. So Nate, you can still hang out for a bit. Who else wants to close out? Jack or Alex, you want to go ahead?
So first of all, just thank you to George, and thank you to all the men that are on here. Thank you, Kelly, as well. I really appreciated Trey starting us off with closing comments and reminding us of and centering us in the time that we are in. A few weeks ago, wrote an essay in published in the Guardian and Medium, talking about this moment, but also talking about the fear that so many fathers have, and Nate just hit on it. Fathers have wondering, are their sons or are their daughters next? And the toxicity of the moment where nationalism, racism, and sexism and xenophobia are colliding is not necessarily unparalleled. It's just being recorded in many instances, but it causes fear, and I think it's just important to just reflect and to continue to press on. I'm reminded in thinking about this moment and what this means, it caused me to just think back about some things that my dad used to say, really a song that he used to sing. He was a member of the Men's Breakfast Club at a church I was raised in, Second Baptist Church. And they would close out each time they gathered as men to share, to dialogue, to be in fellowship with one another. They would close out with a song, and my dad would often lead the closing out. It was "Onward, Christian soldiers, marching on to war with the cross before us, going on before Christ the Royal Master," so on and so forth. And I just think about that as a call to action in this moment of us as fathers, us as men going onward, marching, using whatever is within our reach, whatever tools we have, whatever leverage or influence we have, and the love that we have as men, as fathers, to keep imparting that. It will ultimately move us forward to a brighter day, to a brighter tomorrow. And the last thing I would say with respect to the issues and the systemic racism that is going on and continues to persist, I just think about the quote from an alum of the college I went to. I know there's FAMU was in the house, Morehouse in the house right here as well. And I think about Dr. King when he spoke on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and talked about the fierce urgency of now. But one passage out of that sort of stands out to me, which I hold true, is that this is not the time to drink the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. And we must be bold, and we must be committed, and we must be uncompromising in ensuring that we can go onward, that we can see the day where our sons, where our daughters have the opportunity to live, to thrive, to breathe, to walk, to jog. And so I'm just inspired by being on this call with each and every one of you. It is like water to start off Saturday, listening to you, to hear from you. And you've sowed into me, each and every one of you. And so I'm just grateful. And again, grateful to George for anchoring us with his wisdom and with his love. And so God bless you and appreciate you.
God bless you. Thank you, Alex. I don't know about you guys, but I'm real hopeful about our future with these brothers leading the charge and leading the way and guiding us into the next millennium. Thank you so much, Alex. All right, Jack.
Well, a lot have been said. What a wonderful time. Thank you, Kelly. Everything you're doing with Impact Media is just phenomenal, and this is no exception. Very timely and purposeful. And George Gibbs II, I tell you, man, we're going to circle back because we're going to make this book required reading for everyone associated with the rites of passage, because even though it's a mentorship program, a lot of these boys don't have a birth father, but their mentors and their role models become father figures for them.
Yes.
And the tools and the wisdom out of your book can be very useful for every mentor and every role model champion that we call them in our program. So thank you so much for this read. It's very useful. It's very pertinent for what's going on right now in a lot of our homes that are a lot of broken homes, et cetera, et cetera. But you're right on time. So thank you, George.
So Jack.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were finished. I was going to say, now you see why you had to be a part of this conversation. We changed the time so that Jack Lightsey could participate in this conversation today. And I'm so glad that we were able to do that. That was no problem, but that you were willing to make the necessary sacrifices to be here. And I know how important it was for you to be with the boys today. But thank you for being here. And we're going to continue to feed, each other and continue the blessings on with the boys in the Rites of Passage program as well. So I knew it was important for you to be here amongst this group. So thank you.
This was very good. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Fred?
Thank you, Jack.
Let me just say thank you, Kelly, for this forum. Thank you, George, excuse me, for your book. And thank the rest of you gentlemen for your time and your perspective. I just want to say a few things. I just say this, I have 3 children of mine that are in law enforcement. So a boy, 2 boys and a girl. And so I pray for them constantly for their safety and so forth, and their guidance and so forth. And I would ask you to pray for them as well, and pray for all of our Black men and women that are in law enforcement, because they have some challenging times ahead of them as well through these times that we're going through. And I would just say, it's important that I think one of you gentlemen said it's important that we listen, and that we listen to each other. And I got a lot from Trey Jr., Trey the third, or Alex, I'm sorry, Alex Jr. I got a lot from your son. And what he said was very impactful for me. And I think about it, a thought came to my mind of something my brother said a long time ago. He said, as long as you stay green, you can grow. So I try to stay as green as I can so that I can continue to grow. And I encourage each of you gentlemen to do the same. And all I want to say is Happy Father's Day to all of you gentlemen. Happy Father's Day.
Yes. And I want to say Happy Father's Day as well, and let George have the final say. Now, I really respect George to turn my whole live stream over to him. I knew I could trust him and all of you to have the conversation that needed to be had without me being here, but it does say a lot because the platform that I've built, it's only to promote certain messages. Real protective, over that. But I knew that I could trust this group. And it was a conversation that the men and the brothers, the dads and the sons needed to have. And so thank you all for, making me proud and representing Impact Media and our values as an organization so well. Thank you. And happy Father's Day to you and to all of the fathers in our lives, those who are with us and those who have gone before us. We honor you, we salute you, we thank you, and we bless you.
So thank you, Kelly. Thank you to all you gentlemen. But most of all, I'm so appreciative that that Kelly has stayed the course. It's been a long road, but she stayed the course, and she's made this possible. And so I want to encourage all of you out there who are listening to support her. You know, she is running a nonprofit organization. I might mess the name up, but it's Impact Media. And so, you know, I would encourage you to support her. I would encourage you to, find some way, whether it's through your, economics or your talent, but to provide her with assistance. You know, one of the things about
Thank you,
this kind
George.
of work, it's not easy.
Mm.
It's hard work. So, and she stayed the course. And so I would encourage each of you out there to support her. Go to her Facebook page, go to her web page, and provide her with your support. And
Thank
I want
you.
to say thank you to the gentlemen. This has been great, and we're looking forward to continuing the conversation. And I want to wish every father out there happy Father's Day. Hug your kids, love your kids, and just be that man that your kids can be proud of. If we can all do that, boy, we'll be head and shoulders above the rest. If we can just be the kind of fathers that our kids can be proud of. All right, thank you again.
Absolutely. And George, this was a perfect way to celebrate my 9-year anniversary of arriving in California to build Impact Media and Entertainment Coalition. I came with the chief purpose of doing that. And so yesterday was 9 years. I arrived on Juneteenth in 2011. And this whole month has been dedicated to Black men. And we honor and celebrate you. Next week, we'll be uplifting and celebrating Black men who are making a positive impact in the entertainment industry. So make sure you tune back in. And I just want to acknowledge also all of the viewers who chimed in, all the family, friends, and some who we don't know. So make sure you go back and look at your comments, because you got a lot of shout outs. Unfortunately, we couldn't really weave that into this conversation today, but we acknowledge you, we see you, and we appreciate all the viewers who participated in this conversation as well. So thank you so much, gentlemen. You have enjoy the rest of your Father's Day weekend. I know everyone in your circle is going to treat you like a king, the king that you are and deserve to be treated as, because you really are. And you're such a blessing, not just to your family, but to those who are in your sphere. And I'm blessed to be, one of those people who benefits from, you as a man, as a leader, and a father. And I thank you for that. Have a wonderful Father's Day weekend, everybody. See ya.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How do I get